it's Bookstore Romance Day. I am not your moderator, but I'm going to pretend to be one today. So you are at the Book Your Perfect Match panel with these icons, legends. Truly such a joy to be here. I'm Leah Johnson. I'm the author of the book You Should See Me in a Crown and Rise to the Sun, which came out last month. And we're just gonna go around and introduce ourselves, and then we're gonna launch straight into some questions until our real moderator shows up and Leah can turn back into a pumpkin. Okay, Jay, you want to start?
Yeah, I got it. I love the energy that I'm getting from Leah as moderator. My name is Jay Coles. I am the author of College Johnson Was Here and the upcoming Things We Couldn't Say. I just got my first hardcover. It's gorgeous, and it comes out September 21st. So cop it.
This is one of the first times, I just have to say, this is one of the first times where I've had everybody's book on the panel. Like, I already have it on a shelf back here. So this is really exciting for me to see everyone together. All right, Bree, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brianna Bourne, and I wrote You and Me at the End of the World, which follows two extremely different teenagers after they wake up to find they're the last two people in their silent and empty city. So yeah, that's my pitch. Cool.
Amazing. Molly.
Hello, I'm Molly Knox Ostertag. I'm sorry, I always forget to have a copy next to me, but I wrote and drew The Girl from the Sea, which, oh my God, Leah, you are such a champ.
I was like, I keep it on me. You never know.
You are like my superhero right now. It is a young adult graphic novel romance about Morgan, a 15-year-old girl who is closeted. She's super socially anxious. She lives in maritime Nova Scotia up in Canada. And she meets Kelty, who is a magical selkie, which means that she can turn from a seal into a very cute girl. And they have a romance. And that's Girl from the Sea. Debbie, you're up.
Yay! Thank you, Molly. I'm living for this author love. Loving it. I'm Debbie Rigaud. I am the author of Simone Breaks All the Rules. And it's about a Haitian American teen whose parents have her set up for an arranged prom. So she really wants to break out of the protective cocoon and become a social butterfly. She teams up with other late bloomer friends, and they craft a senior year bucket list so that they can finally reclaim their time. Great to be here, you guys. I love
it. We're really winging it today, y'all. So this is really thrilling. And I also appointed myself the moderator 2 seconds before we got on air. So I just want you all to know that I sort of just stole this title because I was unprepared to participate as a regular author. So I was like, you know what? I'll ask some questions today.
Was this your role in school projects? Were you the one who was I'm taking charge? Okay.
Yes, because I wasn't going to contribute to the research. I wasn't going to contribute to the homework. But one thing I could do is put on a show. Okay.
Amazing.
The secret is we would have all voted for you. The secret is okay.
Wow. I'm honored. But this job is made really easy because Mariana Calderon, who was supposed to be our moderator today, who I absolutely adore, is caught in the crosshairs of Henri. I don't know if we're pronouncing it Henry or Henri, but it's coming through. So we're thinking about Mariana today.
Yeah.
All right. So Mariana was kind enough to prepare some questions. And the first of which is, this is Bookstore Romance Day. So we're talking about love. And the question is, what were some of your influences in terms of love stories growing up and when you decided to start writing? Y'all let me know if you want me to do Socratic method or if you just wanna.
I feel like we should just bounce it around. I'm trying to think of some right now.
That's because
it's funny making romance for this age group because I started making middle grade books And I so much remember being that age and being like, oh my gosh, I hate romance. I hate when it is in books. It's always like the most boring part and I never get it. And so I think a lot of my desire to make romance now is almost a little bit of like, I want to like do it right, or I want to kind of do it in the way that would have interested me as a kid. And so that's kind of like where a lot of it comes from. I also love rom-coms. That's sort of been like, I think as an adult, and then an adult like in love with another person being like, oh, rom-coms are actually very good. Like I totally discounted the genre, but actually I love them. So what about you guys?
I will say that my mom was a huge romance reader, like voracious, and she had like all the paperbacks, you know, just lined up on the shelves, and I would be like, look, the covers are like lady. And so I was really little when I would pick some up and like, you know, leaf through, and I remember I'd be embarrassed if my sister caught me or whatever, but it was always around and she was always just like eating it up. And I too love rom-coms. I love love and, you know, just tropes sometimes. So I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed just kind of like the hope that it brought, you know, a little bit of tears, a lot of laughs. And I thought that was just like a good for me to fit in. So it's lifelong fan.
Yeah, I'm really similar to you, Debbie. My sweet little grandma has the most jaw-dropping romance novel collection, and I used to sit in there and read her books when I was in high school. Also, like a lot of movies were coming out when I was in high school, like 10 Things I Hate About You, Ever After, But I'm a Cheerleader with Natasha Lyonne, Romeo and Juliet, The Titanic, like The Notebook. All of this was just feeding the fuel of me being like a hopeless romantic. So those were some of the things that kind of, I think, were touchstones for me that were shaping me as a reader and a writer. But definitely grandma's paperback romance novel collection.
That was like the golden age of teen movies, actually. It was like the early aughts, late 90s. I think of all of my favorite like touchstones of the genre. All of it is like Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I'm a lot like Molly in the sense of I wasn't a huge fan of romance or reading books that featured romance kind of growing up. But as I'm kind of looking back on like my like writer journey, I feel like the one show that I kept going back to, and it actually ended up being a huge part of my debut novel, is the show A Different World. It's an old, you know, Black television show, and the romance in there being so like profound, and like it being between Black people, and like it being messy. And I was like, oh crap, like that's, you know, that's like my parents' marriage, you know, that's like, you know, my aunt and uncle, and I could like really empathize with that. And I feel like that was kind of the thing that I was like, oh, I could do this and tell like a story, a romantic story, or have a romantic arc in a way that feels real by talking about the messy parts too. I think that made me feel more comfortable writing about romance in my novels for sure.
yeah, one thing I love about what everybody has said is that a lot of what draws all of us to romance is one, imitation of things that we read and saw growing up, but also an attempt to sort of rewrite some of the tropes and traditions and narratives that we had seen that weren't working for us growing up. And so I'm wondering, what is your least favorite romantic trope, and what is your favorite romantic trope? I'll start. I'm a fake dating gal through and through. That like, it's the thing about fake dating is it always fails. It is reliable in that the scheme is going to fall apart, and there's something really soothing to me in that predictability. And I think my least favorite romantic trope, which doesn't happen in YA as much, but I notice it happens in adult romance all the time, is age gap. Like the super old man and the really young woman. That, get it out of here. I hate it.
And it's always that gender configuration also. It's never switched up. Like
if it was like a hot mom, okay, maybe we can have that conversation. But it's never a hot mom.
So true. Oh my goodness, so true.
So one that I'm really drawn to is the stuck together trope. Obviously, I like turn the volume up on that in my book because they are like literally the last two people in the world. I also really like bad boy, good girl, but I don't like my good girls to be super good. And then star-crossed lovers is also good. And I'm really hesitant to say anything about the least favorite trope, but like love triangles don't usually do it for me. There are some that are really great, but they can be hard to pull off.
I was gonna say that was actually my favorite trope is the love triangle. No, you're good. I too feel like I can't think of too many like really good ones, but I'm currently working on a book right now where I'm trying to pull off a love triangle. But I just like the as you're reading it, like the experience of reading it, you're like, oh, I don't know where this character's going to lean, but I know where I want this character to go. I mean, it's a classic, Bella, Edward, Jacob kind of situation.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Team Jacob over here.
A man of taste. I love a love triangle where they don't know, like one corner of them doesn't quite know that they're in a love triangle. Like I love the I'm a jealous friend, but maybe there's something else going on here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love friends to lovers, but I particularly like, I know a lot of people don't like this, but like sort of childhood friends, become lovers. Yeah. Go back to your old town and then see your childhood friends. But I totally am with you, Leah, about the age gap, and I don't like, sort of friends sharing someone, my best friend used to date her or him, and now I'm gonna date her or him now. I don't do the friend swap like no. I don't like that.
Yeah. It's like the more I listen to y'all talk, the more I'm like, oh my God, everything I know about romance I learned from Dawson's Creek. I'm like, okay, you said stranded together, and I was like, the Castaways episode, Pacey and Joey, childhood friends to lovers, Dawson and Joe, like the whole show was pretty much it for me.
I love that you guys know all these trope terms. I feel like I don't I can describe what I like, but I don't know what it's called. But I think
You know what? Yeah. Romance Landia on Twitter has been like my go-to. They taught me everything I know about the language of romance. Before I was like, I don't know, they hang out together and then they kiss at some point.
I just kind of sneak into romance Twitter, a little bit, and
dip my toe in.
I don't want to be fully in there. It's kind of what's going on,
Right.
Can I say a hot take for the trope I don't like?
Let's hear it.
Or here's what I just think. Here's my issue with a lot of romance discourse. I really don't think it has to be a happily ever after to be a romance and to be a valid romance story. And that is I know that there is discourse about this.
That's the hottest take you literally
I know.
had,
I think that approaching romance in that way discounts so many different kinds of relationships that are really meaningful and beautiful. And so I think I've spoilers for my book if you haven't read it and you want to stop, don't listen for the next 30 seconds, but they don't end up together. And I still people love to be like, oh, it's not a romance then. But I think it is a romance. So I don't know. This is me dipping my toe into very hot water, but
yeah, the water is scalding, and I am going to pivot us away from that water because I think that it opens up a can of worms. But I will say that is a really important thing to think about when you think about love stories is the role of all types of love. How does platonic love play into this? How does love that only lasts for a season play into this story? And I think one of the things that I love so much about The Girl from the Sea Witch, literally, I know Molly is tired of me talking about this book. I have been talking about it all summer. It was it after I read it. But one of the things I love so much about all your work is that y'all take this so seriously. There's not a flippancy to the way you approach love stories. There's not a flippancy to the way you approach writing for young people. And so what has your experience been writing inside of a genre or writing into, a reading community that is sometimes looked down upon by the larger literary community?
I feel like we just get to have fun when they're not looking at us too closely.
I think so. I used to always get, oh, you're an author, and then what do you write? And I'm like, I write for young people. And then people turn away, and I'm like, yes, you're just weeding people out for me. That's good.
Right,
I mean, I actually prefer it that way. I don't know if it's the Gen X in me where we're used to being overlooked and we like to work in silence, like in hiding. But I actually I don't. It doesn't bother me at all. I just think of the readers, and I think of the stories that I have interest in, and I just go for that. It doesn't bother me that that people are thinking, they'll think whatever they want to think. They're not the ones that I'm trying to reach then. Mm-hmm. So, and they'll see how fly the offerings is in this whole category, and they'll come back around. They're smart.
Well, and I think also to your point, Debbie, is like so many people are interested in dismissing romance and writing for young people, I think, because of misogyny, because of sexism, because of ageism, like anything that appeals to not cis straight white men. I think people automatically are like, oh, that's not high art, that can't be literature. But really it's a matter of shifting the framework away from hegemony, away from what we've been told is the canon, and into something more inclusive, into something that is interested in catering to a certain type of person that is often not catered to.
Exactly. Well said. I mean, I think that's why it doesn't bother me, because I feel secure in what it is that we're doing, and the good work that we're doing, and the stories that we're bringing to light, and the people that we're connecting with, the readers that we're connecting with. So it sounds personal and has nothing to do with
Right. I want to interject really quickly, because I forgot to mention this. If you have questions, please make sure to enter them into the Q&A box, because at the end of the conversation, or towards the end of the conversation, these genius, brilliant, magnificent, sister I always wanted, mother I never had, people are going to answer your questions. So make sure to put them in the box. Did anybody else want to tag in on this one? Because I do think it's interesting, but I also am like, I mean, we love romance. What is there to, who, like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, my experience has been great. I think I'm interacting mostly with people who enjoy reading these genres. So they've all been really supportive and uplifting. So we're just hanging out over here, like.
Yeah. And that if you're genuinely interested in romance, so much of what is considered like the high art romance, which is as you said, cis, straight white men usually writing it, it's so boring. The romance that happens in it is so basic and so boring. And so it's just to be oh, sorry, I just saw someone disagreeing with me in the comments. I'm sorry for sparking a discourse. But yeah, I think that it's just so fun to be in this world and be we're making work for people that it really matters, and it's it almost doesn't matter what people think if they're not into it.
Yeah. I could talk about this literally all day. Actually, in fact, I have quite a few times. So if you follow me on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen this conversation before. I would love to talk about our specific books that we're here to sort of hawk today. So if we could talk about, where did the inspiration come from to write your stories? Specifically, how did you go about crafting the love story at the center of the book? So I'm going to call on Debbie first, because I love Debbie's story about this. So
I was going to take it from a little different angle and talk about the friendship love.
Okay, let's do it.
But yeah, I always think that when friends get together, particularly women, and just kind of state their desires and their goals, things happen. I've found this out, in my life with friends, and I try to encourage us to say, let's do that again and see if something else will happen for us. But in this book, Simone teams up with other late bloomer friends, and they get together and they say, this is what's happening in our lives. We are feeling, stifled. We want to get past our parents' overprotective rules, and we want to graduate on our own terms. And they team up, and they just state what their desires are to each other. And they make a list And I think it's pretty powerful. And I, try to add a little element of like, oh, let's handwrite it. There's a little extra magic to it. It makes it extra special. And let's use the same pen and let's use, and whatever have you, just to create that little bit extra sort of sparkle to it. But ultimately, it is pretty magical when you're teaming up with friends. And so these are people that they go to school with, but not necessarily ever connected with each other until they realize this commonality. And I think that, there are people around us that we sort of are all siloed and we don't often connect with each other just because we're just going about in our own spaces, in our own bubbles. And sometimes you have something that makes that bubble burst and you kind of make that eye contact almost like for the first time, the second time, and you realize, I feel that the same way that you do. And so I think that's also another point that I wanted to drive home of like how we can build these bridges of commonality and really go into supporting each other and lifting each other up in a common purpose. And so throughout the process, they get to know each other. And at the end, there's a prom. And yes, she's there with the love of her choice after a little bit of a triangle. But ultimately, I made sure that the girls all get together and they meet each other on the dance floor for that to be, just to bring it back to them. So I really enjoyed that. And and that's a particular type of love that I love to see in stories. And I was glad to craft it.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's so gorgeous.
I feel like for me, so I've been saying for a while now that the way that I view love is like, love happens when you feel safe enough to be known. This idea of, it is a very intimate thing, especially for my main character in this book, Gio, who he's dealing with a lot of crap, in his life. His mom abandoned him when he's a little boy. He's trying to figure out like who he's attracted to. He's falling in love with this guy on his basketball team. Like so many things are just happening in his life and he's just feeling incredibly grieved. And he's like, I have to keep it all inward. And it's really about his journey of having to like learn, like to understand himself, to know himself, to love himself inward. And then like looking around outwardly at the people, the family that he has, the found family, the friends, and the love interest. And does he feel equipped or ready to let people in, to let down his walls and to let people know who he really is? Like the things that he is grieving, the things that he most desire, like the intimate parts of who he is, and I feel like as I wrote this book during the start of, this pandemic, that was kind of some of the questions that I was asking myself and figuring out like for myself as I was writing this book alongside Gio's journey was like, there's so many things that like I want to let people into in my life. And through me engaging with that felt deeper love and connection, which is what I most needed in this COVID, pandemic, after being super isolated. And I'm sure some of us can relate to that for sure. So I feel like as I looked at Gio's journey and things we couldn't say, I wanted to kind of hit on all those different, avenues for love, and talk about how, again, like is a very important thing for Gio. It's a very important thing for me. But also like it can be really complicated. It can be messy and things can be broken and things can, be burned down and then start again. But at the end, there is more and more love for him. And so hopefully, people read that book. They pick it up September 21st and can really empathize with that and relate. But yeah, that was my experience.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe your book isn't out yet. It's so good. But it is. I like explored the same things in my book. And I think there's something so poignant about telling that story for that age group of kind of, I think that you start to like come out of your childhood and you do experience these hardships. And like we all like went through things in our teenage years and you have this kind of choice of like, am I going to shut down or am I going to stay open to people? And it's I think it's like really, really beautiful to explore it. But I kind of wanted to make a book about the closet and about queer relationships and about how a queer relationship can be kind of transformative in a way and can help you discover new parts of yourself and kind of open up to the people around you as well. I really loved the idea of having a character who has all these walls up and who thinks, okay, I maybe can have a relationship. It can be secret. I can add this person into my life in this very separate, boxed off way. And then to just realize, like, you can't do that to anybody. You can't do that with a person. And like the forces of love and queerness will break down all of those boxes and like kind of like spill over into the rest of your life and ultimately end up with you being a more open person to everyone in your life. And so that was like a really kind of, I think, I'm a very like logical and like kind of like anxious, anxiety driven person. And to sort of come into a romance from the perspective of like, okay, we're going to do this, but it's going to be just directly here. And like, it's not going to spill over. And like, that just never works. So I think that was really fun to explore.
Yeah.
Love that.
I love that. Is Bree frozen? Am I imagining this?
She vanished from me a little while ago.
Okay.
Yeah, she popped out.
Okay, we'll keep this train on the tracks until she comes back.
I know.
Okay.
We're slowly losing people. This is my cat. Her
One by
name is
one.
Fig, by the way. I just,
Hi,
if you guys
Fig.
were wondering. She like screams if I don't let her in. So we have our own horrid little romance.
You guys are so what's the word I'm looking for? I hesitate to use the word articulate about this, but I do mean it in like the least condescending, like borderline racist way. That like, you know, it's so well considered the way you all are thinking about how love plays a role in your books. You know, I feel like when I was coming up, there was this idea that, you know, love means that you find somebody who's like your missing puzzle piece, and then like you come together and they complete you and blah blah blah. And I got older, you know, and I was like, that's kind of whack. Like, that's a really whack idea. Like, the idea is that I complete me. And that's it. Like, so in Rise of the Sun, for instance, which is about two girls who go to a music festival after 2 really tough years and then find their way to each other. Yeah, like, I'm going to put the girls together at the end because it's a romance. But also, like, I wanted them to end up with themselves before they ended up with each other. And so like that's the real emotional arc of the story. I know my editor was like, Leah, I'm begging you, like they're supposed to get together, like when are you gonna just do it? And I'm like, well, there's still so much therapy that needs to happen before they need to start kissing. But, you know, we'll do it before the end of the book. So yeah, I really, really love that. What is it you all hope that readers take away from the love stories in your books specifically? We kind of touched on that, but I want to dig into it a little more.
I think like besides showing people how your life opens up when you sort of like let your walls down, I also just really wanted to tell a story about an actual relationship that's happening. In my book, the girls kiss in like the first 10 pages. And then, I mean, it's a graphic novel, it goes pretty quickly, but like, and then they sort of like spend the rest of the book negotiating their feelings for each other and their relationship and how secret/public to make it. And also ocean magic and like selkie transformation, the whole thing. But like, I love being in a relationship. And I think I think when I was younger and in high school relationships, that the falling in love part, the tension was so exciting. And then once we were together, it kind of died. And I think like being in like a really, really happy and lovely relationship now, I kind of wanted to explore the excitement that comes from beyond the first kiss and just all the other kisses and all of the other things that you do together. So that was something I really wanted to put in because I think especially for queer stories, I often was seeing stories where it is like all about the tension and the buildup, and which is like wonderful and delicious. And I love that so much. But I wanted to also be like, okay, what is it like to be then 15 and be in your first like same gender relationship? And that was exciting to do.
I love that. I will say that in the love story, that's Simone's love story, it's definitely like you can't plan everything. She keeps a list and everything, but some things that can't be planned. You have to leave the room for spontaneity, and you know, no matter how much you fight it, sometimes the heart wants what it wants, and you know, how does a person that's trying to construct her life this way deal with that? And that was sort of fun to explore. And I have to just say that I think it's really damaging. Like some of the songs that I would listen to as a kid, like one of which was Celine Dion song used to be like super popular, like I'm everything I am because you love me. Like, and I was like, is she talking about her mama? You know, like
go-to therapy.
Even as a little kid, I was like, you know, could you? Yeah. But and so, you know, sometimes we have definite ideas of like what love is, and I knew that wasn't it for me. And so I wanted to explore sort of like if Simone has an idea of what love is, and a lot of it is just like who's gonna look. It's about her prom. It's about who's good she's gonna walk in with. She was obsessed with like fashion and everything, and how everyone's gonna look in a certain way at prom. But then, you know, her heart had other plans. So I thought that was fun. Hey, Brianna, welcome back.
Yay.
Right. I have no idea what's going on.
You're still a frozen box for me, but I'm glad to know that you're here.
I have completely lost the thread of the conversation. Sorry.
That's okay. We're going to tag you right back in. Right now, we're talking about what is the thing you hope readers walk away with knowing from the love story in your book?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, like, ultimately, I want them to have a few hours of escapism and some butterflies in their stomach and stuff. But I also really want people to kind of, when they put down the book, be more ready to take a chance on someone that may have looked really different on the surface and they were kind of afraid to approach as a friend or as more, because like sometimes those people that seem really different like are the ones that can help you on your path to growing, and they may change your life in an amazing way. So yeah, taking a new chance on someone.
I love it.
Like that, Brianna.
Jay, how you feeling? What's your
take?
take?
I don't know. I feel like, so I'm such a pantser when I write. So I don't know what's going to actually happen when I'm writing, anything. So actually in the very first draft, I'm going to kind of spoil a little bit of the book. If you don't want to hear it, sorry. But in my very first draft of Things We Couldn't Say, the main character and his love interest, they didn't end up together. And I was like, okay, this feels maybe right. And then I feel like after talking with my editor and then thinking about it more, I was like, oh man, maybe I have to like edit this a little bit more to see if like the characters will take me on a different journey. And I feel like as I like revisited the book and kind of started from scratch almost, I felt like the characters were taking me in this other direction along the way, like love evolving in so many different ways that like I felt like this constant theme kept coming to me about love being worth like fighting for no matter what kind it is. And I feel like that would be the one thing that I would want young people especially to take away from my story, is just knowing that like sometimes love is worth fighting, the inner demons that we have and the lies that we tell ourselves. And sometimes the external forces, maybe that's family or authority figures in our life, and pushing back against those to find our joy and happiness.
Yeah, there's so much power in messy characters or characters who are not always in the moral green zone. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like, okay, that was kind of bogus the way that you treated that person, or like, that's questionable, that decision making. But I think, to your point, Jay, like it's so important to give young people images and visions of a love that doesn't have to be earned through your perfection. I think so much of the time that's the narrative that we get, is like, you have to hit X, Y, and Z beats, and you have to look X, Y, and Z way, and you have to accomplish X, Y, and Z thing before you can even approach, having a happy ending. And I love that there's so much, there's so much moral ambiguity across some of these stories, but also that like the characters are not perfect by the end. They're they're better because there's been emotional growth, but they didn't fall in love and suddenly become Mr. Rogers, which I think is like, I love that about these stories.
Leah, I feel like you're really good at writing those messy teens and like messy teens girls. Do you ever like get like, is it ever hard to like I don't know, did the characters kind of like run away with their bad decisions, or are you ever like mad at them for making their choices? What's that experience like?
You know what? Thank you for saying that, because the messy ones, that's my bread and butter nowadays.
Yeah.
I think so much of Rise to the Sun in particular was written out of spite. I saw so many reviews of my first book where people were like, oh, I love the main character because she's so good, capital G, good. She's smart and she's driven and she always does the right thing by the people she loves. And I was like, I mean, that's great. I love her too. But also, what an unreasonable expectation to hold our characters to, particularly queer characters, particularly Black characters. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of perpetuating the narrative that like you have to be good, capital G, in order to deserve good things. And so, you know, in Rise to the Sun, Olivia, who is one of the narrators of the book, Olivia is foolish. That is a foolish girl. She is.
I love her so much.
She is a chaotic bisexual to her core. And it's you know, and those decisions were really organic. I was like, okay, well, if I was Olivia and I was struggling with this thing and I was dealing with this at home, how would I behave in a relationship? Yeah. And most of the time the answer is poorly. So it's like I love writing girls who are sometimes hard to root for because it doesn't seem like they're rooting for them, but like in the end, hopefully you come around on them and they come around on themselves. So thank you for asking that. I love talking about really foolish girls. It's my love language. I'm gonna look at some of these questions in the box. Yes, love to see it. In the meantime, pre-order the book that is not out. Jay's book is the only book that's not out yet.
Yeah.
Savoy Bookshop. Yeah, it'll be out. What is it? September 22nd?
The 21st, yep.
21st. Don't get it on the 22nd. Don't listen to me. Get it on the 21st. One of the questions, I really like this actually, is do any of you work with kids and teens, and how does that affect your writing? I can start. I do. I do work with teens. I'm a professor of creative writing and I teach mostly first and second year students. And so when young people come to me, they're still 17, 18 years old, generally speaking. Like a lot of times 6 months ago, they used to have to ask to go to the bathroom. And so I'm still seeing them at the very beginning of their adult lives. And I think watching how optimistic, and I don't mean like, you know, rose-colored glasses optimism. I mean like realistic about the material conditions of their world, but still like optimistic about what their role in it can be and what the work that they do can do for the world. I think that has been really important to channel into my work. Is like I feel fatalistic almost every day of my life. Working on that with my therapist. But, you know, working with young people who are so ambitious and so excited about the world that they have an opportunity to change has made me want to be more ambitious and more optimistic in my storytelling.
I taught middle school, high school, and I now work at Ball State University in Muncie. So I've been at all those levels.
The Harvard of Muncie, Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. Graduated from there, and I feel like every time I see, especially, you know, college students, freshmen in college, you know, you're getting them also at around 18, 19. And I feel like, man, there's so many stories that I get to hear from them about all the places they've been, you know, the place that they're from, family structures, life experiences. And I feel like, man, like as someone who grew up, you know, on the west side of Indianapolis, didn't really leave that place for much of my childhood. I was like, I didn't really experience very much of the world, you know, in my little bubble. And so being at a place where I'm able to hear all these stories just makes me realize, oh, there's so much out there to be discovered and explored, and so many stories that are still yet to be told. And I use that as like fuel and inspiration in my stories for sure. Like a lot of my characters are shaped after people and students that I've met over the years for sure.
I love that.
So lovely.
I haven't worked with with young people, but well, not for a little while now, but I have everyone's aged up in my family, and so there's a lot of teens and their friends coming up, and it strikes me how different they are from teens in like popular TV shows, for example.
Mhm.
You know, I look at their lives, and they're a lot younger than they are on on the soap dramas and everything that we're watching now, and I consider that because sometimes when you're writing, you can kind of you kind of sense like the adult gaze, and you're like, wait a minute, and going to events, there'll be a lot of adults too, so connecting with the young people in the family, letting them be beta readers and things like that helps me, sort of recalibrate a lot of what we're being shown on a sort of mainstream scale, and so I think that's been important, and so sometimes you get the reviewers that say this is so young, when they read some of my stuff.
It's a book for kids. You old man. What are you even doing here?
Yeah.
Oh, Debbie, I will fight everybody.
I mean, I got the Vaseline on my skin when every time I like lather it up, and I'm like,
right.
But one of the reviews I read recently was like, I like this, but it's set in a high school, and I'm not really one for high school.
Oh, what are you? I hate it here.
I mean, talking to the kids and their friends just kind of put me back, but at the same time, they have such amazing inner worlds, like how you speak with you spoke to Jay, and I really want to explore that end of it without sort of like aging them out of their bracket,
right?
Like I see happening.
There's a middle ground between Disney Channel teens and Euphoria teens, and that's I think it's helpful to be around real life teenagers to figure out like, y'all still do stuff like hang out in the Target parking lot because there's nothing else to do in this town after 11.
Yes.
I've never seen a teen show that accurately shows like how often you hang out in a parking lot. It's like 80% of teen hangouts. You're like, it's 2 a.m. I'm in the diner parking lot, having the most deepest conversation of my life. And yeah, I love it. I wish I could I don't have any teens in my family, but I used to work at summer camp for teens, and I don't anymore, obviously, but like it is just so cool to kind of remember and stay in touch with that feeling of like everything is the most important thing in the world. And at the same time, you're trying to be very cool. And there's so many conflicting forces between like pulling you between adulthood and childhood. And it's I feel like I both like remember that time in my life really strongly. And then also getting to work with those kids when I was like a young adult was just kind of, it's just cool to be like, you are both so mature, but also like, you've never done certain things before. It's so young about certain things, and it's really fun to try to sort of tell stories in that space.
I haven't worked with kids or teens at all before, but what drew me to write YA is that like my experiences when I was a teenager were so intense, and that's why I wanted to kind of write a first love book, because I wanted to try to capture how like wondrous and earth-shattering all of those firsts are, and also like Hannah and Leo get to be really, really alone, so they're waking up together and like making food for each other and trying to help each other like cope through something really intense, and they're doing all of that for the first time. So that's like kind of what drew me to write for teens in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, what can I say except I'm so obsessed with children's literature. It's like I just think there's so much work to be done in this, age category, in this genre, and it's really, really exciting to be a part of a wave of writers who are like showing a varied range of experiences and different backgrounds of characters. I'm just like, I'm like constantly impressed. I read like 12 books a year because every time I read a book, I have to sit with it for an entire month before I can move on, as Molly would know, because it's all I talk about. All right. So if you could put your main character into a rom-com movie, what would it be?
Such a cute question.
I will say My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because initially I was sort of comping it as Simone as My Big Fat Greek Wedding for prom, and just the family and culture, and just all the secrecy and the love that had to be done. I definitely love that movie for those reasons, and I could say that Simone would do well in that movie. She probably gives the main character a lot of good ideas.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I feel like I could put my characters, I'm trying to think of like lesbian rom-coms. I think I could put them into Imagine Me and You, which is this like gorgeous British rom-com about, it's like older, it's about adults, but about a woman who gets married to a man and then she falls for the florist at her wedding. He's played by Lena Headey and she wears little vests. It's like really cute. But yeah, it's a really good movie. And it captures that feeling of this irresistible draw to someone where it's just like, I can't sort of like control the way I am drawn to you. And I don't quite know, is it a friendship or is it something more? Like, I can tell that you are going to change my life in a way that is maybe scary, but I can't turn away from you. So I would love to like put my characters in that AU. It would be really cute.
That's good.
I've got to watch that. Sounds great.
It's really good. It's like so like unwatched, but it's really lovely.
I was just gonna say, I feel really boring. I can't even think of a single rom-com anything. So if you have an answer for me, I'd love to hear it. But anyone in the chat, if you guys have an answer.
Similarly, I'm really bad at like on the spot questions. So I'm drawing a blank on rom-coms, but I will tell you who would play Leo if my book was a movie, and that would be Harry Styles. So, so Harry,
I love that. Jay, I'm gonna sit with it. I'm gonna think about it, to be honest, because that's gonna trouble me. Part of the problem here is like, how can you figure it out when they don't make rom-coms with Black teenagers often enough? So that's the real juice in the squeeze.
Well, I remember pitching originally. We pitched the book using the movie Love and Basketball. Which is
because that's like our point of reference.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with Love and Basketball.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I know. Yeah. I'll tell you what book or what movie I would not put one of my characters in, and it's one of my absolute favorite movies, and that's To All the Boys I Loved Before, because I know for a fact Olivia would lose it for Peter Kavinsky, and it would be the worst possible course of action. Olivia's best friend would physically fight him. It would be a mess. It would throw the whole thing off. So I'm glad Lara Jean is the main character for that one. Let's see. I feel like we have time for 1.5 more questions. So let's see. What are books you recommend? What have you read recently that you loved?
I have one off the top of my head.
Let's
The
hear
Ghost
it.
We Keep by Mason Deaver. I love books about grief because I feel like, we, especially in this pandemic, we all have so much that we're grieving, and I feel like just people in general, the people that I know, the people that I see online, like we're all just really bad at sitting in grief. I feel like it's easy to run away from it, which is very human. And I feel like Mason Deaver's The Ghost We Keep really explores that in a very visceral, like so like deep way that like really, really wrecked me for a long time. I actually texted Mason and I was like, how dare you? So yeah, I would say that.
I want to just say really quickly, Jay, one time we did a panel together and you talked about grief being like a backpack. Like you just carry a backpack around your entire life and you just keep adding things to it that you're grieving. And it's like how you carry the backpack that matters, not like the fact that the backpack is there. And when I tell you, I really had to sit with that. I walked away from the panel like, I'm going to bring this up with my therapist next week. That was so good. Anyway, I love the way that you talk about grief.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
I want to continue shouting out Mason because I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
so good.
Yeah.
It's a really sweet story.
We're getting a movie?
Good.
Like what?
We're getting a movie. Yes. Yes, we're getting a movie. And I can't wait. More of that.
I've read a couple of things lately that are kind of like on the darker side, but they do have some really gorgeous romances in them. And that's The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gold and The Hollow Inside by Brooke Lauren Davis. And then one that's not so dark is In the Same Boat by Holly Green. It's amazing.
Oh, yes. That was edited by the genius Maya Marlette, who happens to be my editor as well. So
I've been reading like a lot of nonfiction lately, but I have been reading Kazuo Ishiguro's The Buried Giant, which is, have you read it?
No,
you're like reacting.
You said their name and I was like, oh my God, yes. It doesn't matter. Like every other book, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful, there is like a romance, it's a very weird book. He's written a lot of like interesting like British like stories set in England at different time periods, and this one is like post King Arthur era, and it's about this elderly couple traveling the land, but they can't remember anything, and so they like remember just like that they love each other, but they can't remember their lives together. And part of the story is them trying to find the source of this memory loss so that they can remember their lives together, and them starting to get afraid, like, oh, are there things that we don't know that mean that we're happy now? And it's a beautiful book. It's kind of upsetting. But it's gorgeous. I'm just really loving it. And it also, I don't quite know how to like put it into words, but it is very much also pandemic feelings where it just is very much this, like these characters taking it a day at a time and being like, how can we make each other comfortable and be loving to each other every day, and sort of not having the ability to look at the wider story that they're in. So I've been reading it very slowly, but really enjoying it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's see. I read 2 books this week. I want y'all to know that's like a major feat.
Good.
Okay. So I finished The One and Only Ivan by Catherine Applegate.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Why didn't anybody tell me this is the greatest book of all time? I was just like, I read it in one sitting. It's so beautiful. It's about a silverback gorilla named Ivan who lives his entire life in captivity and isolation, essentially, until a baby elephant comes along and encourages him, gives him the drive to finally find a way to break out of this, break out of his captivity and find his other gorillas. It's so beautiful. And it's a movie, but I haven't watched the movie. It's middle grade. It's like, I can't obsess over it enough. But also, Squad by Maggie Tsukuda Hall and Lisa Sterling. Like, this book, it's a graphic novel, so you'll read it probably pretty quickly. I had to beg somebody for an arc of this. I'm obsessed with it. It's Mean Girls meets Teen Wolf. It's queer. It's weird. It's like about like morality, but also just about like friendship and like stuff. It's amazing. I'm obsessed. And it's about the patriarchy, which is really sick. So it's out on October 5th. All right. Wow. Y'all, we've timed that almost perfectly. We have 2 minutes left to wrap this up. So if everyone wants to go around and tell us what book you want us to buy and what you have coming next, I feel like that's a good way to tap out.
You can buy my book.
Right.
Oh, what? Okay, I will always start.
Okay.
You can buy my book, The Girl from the Sea. It's out now. I have several other graphic novels that are also out, and I can't say anything that I'm working on, but I'm hopefully gonna have some more things dealing with romance coming up because I love writing it so deeply.
Amazing.
You can pre-order Things We Couldn't Say. Again, comes out September 21st. So excited. You can also pick up in your local bookstore or online the anthology Black Boy Joy just went #1 New York Times bestseller. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Jay, I love
Amazing.
that cover. That cover is beautiful. Things we couldn't say. And Black
Thank
Boy
you.
Joy.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a gorgeous cover.
Yeah.
Simone is out now. Simone breaks all the rules. So thanks for ordering. And I'm working on a YA coming out next summer.
Yes.
So deadline day.
You and Me at the End of the World came out last month, so you can order that now. And if you want theme and romantic tension and just 2 characters on the page the whole time. And I'm working on book 2 right now. It doesn't have a release date, but it will also have a lot of almost kissing scenes.
That cover is so beautiful.
It is.
It is.
All right, so Rise to the Sun came out in July. I'm pretty proud of it. I thought it was a pretty good book. So if you haven't bought it, please do. And right now I'm working on my middle grade. It's the first of my series, Ellie Ingalls Saves Herself. It's out with Disney Hyperion in spring of 2023. You can't pre-order it, but do get excited about it. You know what I mean? All right. Thank you all for coming. Happy Bookstore Romance Day. This was so wonderful hanging out with you all.
Thank you, Leah. You are so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
You saved us.